What happens when a woman with a mania for control cuts the power to a veteran to put him in his place? You won't believe how her own steps led to her most humiliating fall. They say no good deed goes unpunished. But I never expected that running an extension cord to my elderly neighbor's trailer would eventually lead me to digging through manure and battling with a woman who looked like she was allergic to minding her own business. My name's Leonard James. Folks around here call me Lenny. 61 years old, retired electrician, third-generation rancher, and still stubborn as a mule. I live in a little patch of Alabama that ain't even marked on most GPS apps. Just trees, cows, and a whole lot of folks who still wave when they pass you on the road. Or at least, they used to. The trouble all started on a Sunday afternoon, the kind that smelled like fresh hay and barbecue smoke. I was out back fixing a busted pipe under the barn when Miss Ida, my 93-year-old neighbor, knocked on my fence post with her cane. Said her lights went out, and her oxygen machine was flickering. Now, I wasn't about to sit there and let a war widow with half a lung left suffer in the heat. So, I did what any decent man would do. I ran a line from my generator to her place until the power company could get to her. Took me 20 minutes tops. Nothing fancy, just kindness. But apparently, that act of neighborly decency offended someone. And by someone, I mean Karen Lorraine Buckley, the self-appointed queen of our cul-de-sac. Let me tell you something about Karen. She moved in about a year ago from some gated community up north, came rolling in with her leased white Tesla, 2 tiny yapping dogs, and a binder full of HOA rules she printed herself, for a neighborhood that doesn't even have an HOA. I kid you not. At first, we all thought she was just overly excited. You know, trying to help improve the community. Turns out, she wasn't excited, she was obsessed. The woman walked the neighborhood with a clipboard, snapping pictures of people's gardens like she was with the FBI. Called the sheriff on a 12-year-old for excessive lemonade stand traffic. Sent a letter to Old Man Jenkins demanding he trim his magnolia tree during the winter. Now, I don't go looking for fights. I got cows to feed, a grandkid who thinks I'm Superman, and enough back pain to remind me I'm not. But the moment I plugged in that cord for Miss Ida, Karen must have smelled the electricity through her window and decided it was some kind of personal attack. The very next day, I woke up to find a bright orange violation notice duct taped to my mailbox. Not a standard warning, mind you. She printed it on her home printer in Comic Sans, bolded the words, "Unsafe electrical activity," and signed it, "Karen Buckley, Community Watch Supervisor." Community Watch Supervisor? We don't even have a community watch. It was just her and her binoculars. I laughed it off at first. Figured she was just bored. But things escalated faster than a bull seeing red. 2 days later, I came home from the feed store to find my entire breaker box had been opened. At first, I thought it was the utility guys. Nope, they don't carry pink gardening gloves or leave behind a half-empty iced soy latte on your lawn chair. All my power was out. Every last socket in my house was dead. My security cameras caught it all. Karen, in her yoga pants and oversized sun hat, snipping wires like she was pruning roses. Now, I'll admit, I was stunned. For about 2 seconds. Then I was mad. Not the kind of mad where you yell and stomp. I'm too old for that. I'm talking about that quiet, calculated, I need to think before I do something stupid kind of mad. I called the sheriff, showed him the footage. He nodded a lot, said it was tricky, because technically she didn't break into my house, and the footage was circumstantial. Said I should talk it out with her. Yeah, I'm sure that'd go real smooth, if I were deaf and didn't mind being lectured about carbon footprints and composting. So I decided to take the high road at first. I fixed the wiring myself, reinstalled the locks on the breaker box, and added a little note inside. "Smile, you're on camera." Figured that'd keep her off my lawn. But Karen don't like to lose. And she especially don't like being ignored. Next week, she filed a complaint to the county claiming I was running illegal power operations on agricultural land. Agricultural land? Lady, it's a ranch. What the hell does she think cows eat concrete? She also had the nerve to show up during my grandson's birthday party, uninvited, to announce that I was poisoning the local ecosystem with my backup generator. My sister nearly threw a cupcake at her. Now here's the part where things start getting real tense. Miss Ida? Her power went out again, this time for good. The cord I ran was sliced clean in two. Like someone came through in the night with a pair of hedge clippers. No prizes for guessing who. Miss Ida called me in tears. Said she heard someone sneaking through her bushes the night before, but thought it was a raccoon. I knew then I couldn't let this go. It wasn't just me anymore. Karen was messing with people's safety. My kindness turned into a target. My quiet little corner of peace was becoming a war zone. And the system? It wasn't doing a damn thing to stop it. That night, I stood out by the pasture, watching the moonlight hit the still surface of the manure pit behind the barn, the one I use when cleaning out the cow stalls every other Sunday. And for the first time in a long while, I found myself thinking some very creative thoughts. But this ain't over. Not even close. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how far she went, and what I had to do to stop her. Stay with me. This is just getting started. You'd think someone cutting your power and sabotaging your neighbor's oxygen line would be enough to get the authorities moving. But no, in our town, unless there's smoke or sirens, they treat neighbor disputes like a spilled glass of sweet tea. Sticky, sure, but nobody wants to clean it up. That's when I realized something. Karen wasn't just annoying, she was dangerous. And if the law wasn't going to stop her, I'd have to get real creative, but keep it legal. Or at least legal enough to make a point. Now let me back up a minute. After the power cord to Miss Ida's trailer got sliced, I replaced it again, this time with a heavy-duty cable protected by a steel conduit. Buried part of it underground too. Figured that would buy us some time. Wrong. 2 days later, I found the conduit dug up and mangled like somebody took a crowbar to it. And guess who just happened to be outside watering her hydrangeas when I found it? Karen. Wearing gardening gloves and a smirk. I didn't say a word to her. I just stood there, taking it all in. That woman was looking me in the eye like she wanted me to snap. Like she was waiting for me to yell so she could play victim. But I've been around the block too many times for that. Instead, I tipped my hat, turned around, and walked back to my barn. That's when the real planning started. Let me tell you a little something about my barn. It ain't just for tools and hay. It's got a full electrical workshop inside. I used to run my side business out of it, fixing generators and doing wiring jobs for farms that couldn't afford the big companies. I've got switches, panels, backup batteries, even a few spare inverters, all legal, licensed, inspected years back. More importantly, it's got cameras. Hidden ones. And motion-triggered lights. After dealing with coyotes and a few two-legged trespassers, I learned long ago that it's better to have eyes everywhere. So I started keeping watch. Not just on Karen, but on the patterns. When did she go out? When did she sneak around? How close did she get to my pasture, to my barn, to my breaker box? And then came the turning point. It was 3:22 in the morning when the alarm pinged. Motion detected behind the east side of the barn. I pulled up the feed on my tablet, and there she was. Karen, in a bathrobe and slippers, flashlight in one hand, garden shears in the other. That woman looked like she was hunting for buried treasure. She snuck up to the fence line, stepped over the rocks, and made her way right up to the corner of the barn, clearly looking for something to tamper with. The extension cord to Miss Ida had been rerouted by then, but I'd left a dummy wire out, just to see what she'd do. She took the bait, snipped it clean, smiled like she'd just saved the world, and strutted back to her house. I saved that footage, backed it up 3 times, put it on a USB drive the size of a dog biscuit, and stuck it in my boot just in case. Because now I had proof, and I wasn't going to waste it. Now I know what you're thinking. Lenny, you can't go head-to-head with crazy. And you're right. That's why I didn't. Instead, I built a little surprise. Call it a friendly neighborhood demonstration. See, right behind the barn, maybe 30 yards past the big oak, sits my manure pit. It's not fancy, just a concrete basin with a grate and a pump for drainage. Every few weeks, I use it to collect the waste from the cows and turn it into fertilizer. The smell alone could peel paint off a truck. So I rigged up something special. I took an old outdoor outlet box, the kind built to handle rain and dirt, and connected it to a dummy power grid I wired inside the barn. I disguised it to look like it was supplying current to something valuable. In reality, it wasn't live at all. It was wired to a surge system, completely safe, but very attention-grabbing. Loud, flashy, and dramatic. And I placed it right next to the manure pit. A week went by. I didn't see Karen. Thought maybe she got bored. Maybe she'd moved on to yelling at squirrels or trying to trademark her driveway. But no, she was just waiting. Then came Saturday night. I hosted a small get-together for some of the local ranchers, folks I've known for decades. We grilled. We laughed. We told the same old stories like they were new again. Around 11:30, everyone packed up. I walked them out to the front gate, waved goodnight, and made my way back to the barn, just in time to hear the snap of wire cutters. My heart thumped. I crouched by the wall and watched. There she was. Karen. Again. Dressed in black this time, gloves, hoodie, the whole 9 yards. Like some kind of outlaw suburban ninja. She approached the fake outlet box, eyed it like a raccoon about to snatch a sandwich, and reached down with her snippers. Click. She triggered the motion light. And then, boom, the surge system popped. Sparks flew, harmless but flashy. The whole field lit up like the 4th of July. Karen screamed, lost her balance, and stumbled straight into the edge of the manure pit. Now, before you ask, no, she didn't fall in. But one leg went in deep. And when I say deep, I mean knee-high cow soup. I walked up, slow and steady, flashlight in hand, calm as a Sunday preacher. Well, I said, barely holding back a smirk, looks like you found the power source. She froze, half covered in stink, face pale as flour. You set me up. No, ma'am, I said. You set yourself up. I just watched you do it. I offered her a towel. She didn't take it. Just waddled home, one shoe missing, and pride leaking out of her faster than that pit drained after a storm. The next morning, she was out with a hose, scrubbing her driveway like she was trying to erase the whole night. Didn't say a word to me. But I had footage. And I had enough town folk who heard what happened to fill a bingo hall. The story spread fast. And yet, I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Because when folks like Karen feel exposed, they don't back down. They double down. And judging by the silence that followed, she was planning something. This is the turning point. Everything you've waited for is coming. Stay close, because what happens next? It flips everything on its head. There's something eerie about the silence that comes after a storm. No birds, no wind, just the heavy quiet that settles when you know things ain't over. They're just loading the next round. That's exactly what it felt like the week after the Manure incident. You'd think after getting caught red-handed and brown-legged, Karen would have backed off. Maybe moved on. Started a compost blog or taken up knitting. But no. She doubled down. And I could feel it brewing like bad coffee left too long on the burner. See, when someone like Karen feels embarrassed, truly humiliated, they don't go lick their wounds. They get vengeful. And when that person also happens to be a bored busybody with too much free time and a closet full of entitlement, you better believe they're gonna come back swinging. At first, it started small. My mailbox mysteriously got dented. Twice. Then someone started dumping old flyers and junk brochures in my driveway. Real subtle stuff. But I've been in this game too long to believe in coincidences. Then she filed an actual complaint with the State Environmental Board, claimed my manure pit was a biohazard and criminal negligence. Can you believe that? She even sent in printed photos, grainy zoom-ins that looked like she took them from a bush wearing night vision goggles. I wouldn't be surprised. I got the notice in the mail and nearly laughed myself into a hernia. But the state? They weren't laughing. They said they had to send an investigator just to follow protocol. Now, I don't know how many of y'all have had to deal with government inspections, but let me tell you, once the system gets involved, it's like molasses uphill. It doesn't move fast, but it sure makes a mess. So now I wasn't just dealing with Karen's antics. I had a state official poking around my land, measuring dirt like it owed him money. And it hurt. Not just because it was unfair, but because everything I'd built, my land, my barn, my reputation, was being dragged through the mud by a woman who couldn't stand not being in control. And worst of all, nobody stopped her. That's when something shifted in me. This wasn't just a petty neighbor problem anymore. This was bigger, deeper. I realized I wasn't just fighting Karen. I was up against a whole system that let people like her win by making everyone else too tired to fight back. But I wasn't tired. Not yet. Now let me tell you about Marvin Dillard, county council member, Vietnam vet, and a man who's lived in this town longer than its zip code. Marvin's the kind of guy who doesn't say much unless it matters, and when he talks, folks listen. He came by my place one morning after hearing the buzz about the manure incident and the state inspection. "Lenny," he said, standing by his truck, sipping from a styrofoam cup, "I heard Karen's trying to get your ranch shut down." I nodded. "She's swinging at shadows. But she's got reach." Marvin stared across the pasture for a while, then turned to me. "You still got that footage of her trespassing? Backed up 6 ways from Sunday." He gave a slow nod. "Then maybe it's time the town saw it." See, I wasn't one for drama. I never liked making a fuss. But if Karen wanted to drag me through the system, fine. I'd let the community court decide, the one that actually matters. The people. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called my nephew. He runs a local YouTube channel, mostly fishing videos and tractor reviews. I gave him the footage. All of it. From the first snip of the wire to the scream and splash moment in the manure pit. He edited it clean, no mocking, no commentary, just the facts with timestamps, audio, and a simple title. "Neighbor cuts power to oxygen machine, then falls in cow pit." We posted it on a Thursday. By Friday morning, it had 43,000 views. By Sunday, the sheriff called me personally. Now let me pause right here to say something real. Because this ain't just about revenge. This is about truth. About folks who live honest lives getting steamrolled by someone who's got nothing better to do than stir up trouble and pretend it's justice. Karen didn't just try to cut power. She tried to cut down a way of life. Mine. Miss Ida's. Every neighbor who grows their own tomatoes and minds their business. And she didn't like that the town sided with me, because the fallout came hard and fast. The sheriff, bless his tired soul, showed up at her house with an official notice, trespassing and property damage complaint, supported by evidence. County code enforcement gave her 2 citations, one for tampering with electrical systems and one for illegal surveillance. Turns out those grainy photos she sent the state? She'd been taping folks for months without permission. And the environmental board? They showed up for their inspection and found nothing. My pit was up to code, clean as could be, and the inspector even joked it smelled better than his office. Meanwhile, Karen tried to do damage control. Sent out flyers to the neighborhood about misinformation and context. But it was too late. Folks had seen her true colors, and they weren't HOE beige. Miss Ida baked me a pie. Marvin shook my hand in church. And my nephew? Got 3 new sponsors for his channel. Said next time I want to go viral, just call him first. But me? I just went back to my pasture. Fed the cows. Checked the fence. Watched the sunset and finally breathed like a man who had his peace back. Karen? She stayed quiet for a while. Still lives 2 houses down. But now when she walks her dogs, she crosses the street when she passes my place. Guess she's afraid of slipping again. And that's how it ends, folks, not with shouting, but with truth louder than noise. When you stand your ground, even when it stinks, sometimes that's exactly how you clean house. Thank you for riding this storm with me. And remember, when someone cuts your power, make sure you've got a backup and a camera.